If you had just 30 minutes to go back in time to tell your younger self anything, what would you say? Besides, invest in Bitcoin or something. It's really interesting to think about if you saw the title of this episode and you were like, whoa, Mel, like, why are you screaming in all caps at the top of your lungs at your younger self? Be nice to her. Well, you know what? You got a point there. The first thing I would do is give little Mel a big old hug and tell her, you're doing amazing, sweetie, because we can all be really, really hard on ourselves. But sometimes we need a little bit of tough love. And in this episode, we are firing up the flux capacitor in that DeLorean Doc Brown, and we are going back in time to that gal in her Forever 21 jeans and a going out top. And my friends, you are coming with me on your own journey that is unique to you and your younger self. Here's the thing. Different versions of ourselves can teach us something at any stage of life that we are in. They can also help us sit in the present and reflect for our future. So I'll promise you, no matter where you are in your life or career or whatever, you can either relate to some of these, keep them in your back pocket for when you need them, or it'll give you a perspective on just a whole new direction. So buckle up, enjoy the ride, unpacking years of what I've learned into one short episode of here is the top advice that I would be screaming at my younger self if I had just 30 minutes or less to go back in time and tell her. Hey there, I'm Melody Bose, your host of Jeans with the Blazer, a podcast about rewriting the rules of work and life. Okay, skirt. Pit stop real quick. I'm going to get into it, I promise, but I just wanted to take a pause really quick. It's about the middle of the year when I'm recording this episode, and so we're doing a little halfway checkpoint reflection. And don't worry, it doesn't matter what time of the year that you're listening to this, because really, time is a construct and it doesn't exist. You can be listening to it at any point of the year, and it can be your half point, whatever. So another thing I noticed was pretty interesting. There are a lot more listeners than when I first started this podcast. So I just wanted to take a little sweet moment of gratitude and say, hey, welcome in. And wherever you're listening on the Apple Podcasts or the Spotifys or the YouTubes, I'm so genuinely happy that you're here. So I started this podcast a few months ago because I was genuinely so over the boring and outdated career and life advice that just focused on work or just focus on just little fragments of life. And we all know it's way more complicated and just messy at times. And it's just really cool to know that there are now hundreds of people from more than 150 cities and 9 countries tuning in. And the fact that you've resonated with what I've had to say so far is it's so cool. So thank you for your kind DMs on Instagram. Thank you for your replies to my email newsletter. I do read every single one. Go ahead and test me. I dare you. No, seriously, if you're not on the weekly email newsletter, then I will share a link to that in this podcast. Sign up for it. It's kind of like the after party to the podcast, things that don't make it to the mic. But in there, in one of the emails, I shared that this podcast actually broke the top 200 in its category, which is not an easy thing to do. And I couldn't have done it without you. So I'm genuinely honored to just have some small part of your week whenever you decide to tune in. I'm glad you're here. Anyway, in doing a little bit of reflecting, I got a little sentimental. My birthday is also coming up, but I was thinking about essentially what I would tell my younger self. And I feel like when I started working from my barista job at a coffee shop when I was 16 to my, professional career, I figured out mostly everything on my own. And I did meet some people and mentors along the way, but for the longest time, I felt like I was cosplaying as an adult. I still do. And I wonder, sometimes, am I the only one? But I wish I had someone that just kind of like sat me down and told me some things when I was just starting out. And I probably wouldn't have listened because I may be a little bit stubborn. But I would have loved more guidance or at least more people to relate to along the way because professionally, it felt kind of lonely. And your girl, she stumbled and she fumbled pretty hard. So this isn't going to be like the motivational Pinterest quotes or like ChatGPT generated, like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like, no, jargon jar, if you're watching. A little jargon jar on my desk where I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but maybe you can give me some ideas and help me out. All right, This is real life. I learned this the hard way kind of stuff. So these are the things I learned through the awkward emails, the weird jobs, the silent wins, and that one time you know what? Never mind. Regret nothing. Number 1, get your online presence together. Okay, so when I graduated college, I still had a few months left on my lease. I've talked about this in a previous episode, but it's where I lived with 3 of my best friends, and the idea was to enjoy the summer, figure out the real world at some point. Well, I was under the impression that once you graduate, there are just people lining up outside of your door, just waiting, just fighting over each other, trying to give you a job. That's obviously not the case. And I come from immigrant parents. I myself am an immigrant. And even though I grew up in the US, I had no grasp of what the American university system was outside of what I saw in movies, which was shockingly accurate, much to my mother's chagrin. Anyway, I came out of school on the tail end of the recession, so prospects in general were a little glib. So I had one of those crises where I was kind of circling the drain of my own existential dread and not knowing what my future was going to look like. So I spent a few weeks figuring out how to write a resume, getting a professional email. Besides my university email, my personal email was mtvisnotmusic@yahoo.com. So edgy, so embarrassing for my soul. Anyway, I got a LinkedIn, but you know what I didn't do that I would scream at myself to do now? I didn't hide any of my Facebook pictures. Okay, so Instagram at the time was still new-ish, but at the time it was just like albums of like 85 blurry photos from Nickel Beer Tuesdays at Potbelly's at Florida State. Just being messy, doing keg stands, and dancing on bars like a, 20-something does, I guess. Some do. To this day, it is the 8th wonder of the world how I managed to get an internship and just be hired after college. Clean it up. On Instagram, you don't even have to private your Instagram. We are so just technologically forward now. You can just archive the messiness and once you're hired and you're in good, then you can unhide all of that or unarchive it. Another thing too, just be mindful of what you say online as well. This is just an aside. Exercise your freedom of speech, but just pause before you post, because anything can really be taken out of context and the person who's hiring you might not have that sense of humor. It reminds me of that scene in Miss Doubtfire where the social worker lady meets Robin Williams' character for the first time, and she asks him, do you have any special skills? And he's like, oh, why, yes, I do voices. And she's like, what do you mean, voices? And he goes on to be like, yes, and we've come to this world looking for intelligent life. Oops, we made a mistake. And he goes on this monologue for 10 different voices, and at the end, you're just cracking up, but she's looking at him just with the most blank stare on her face, and she says something like do you find yourself humorous? And he just is really humbled in that moment. He's like, you know what, there was a time when I thought I was funny, but you've proven me wrong. So that's what that reminds me of. Okay, anyway, consider yourself in a fishbowl and just keep all sides of the street clean. So until you get hired, then just let that freak flag fly within reason. All right, number 2, take advantage of the office hours. If you work in a setting that has executives and a senior leadership, but even if not, don't look at the boss or executives like they're foreign dignitaries that you can't make eye contact with, or when they walk by they're like celebrities. Find out what their protocol is for connecting. Some places, like the CEO or the VP, they have an assistant and you have to go through them and several hoops to schedule time with them. Some have an open door policy, and it ranges, but ask to set up some time with them. If they're good leaders, they will make it work with their calendar. If they don't make that available to you, then that tells you something too. So that's the level of access that you'll have to the leadership, and I'm not going to have any absolutes here, and there's always exceptions to the rule, but that could be a reflection of its culture or the mentorship or, the lack of it. But if you like where you are and you can't go straight to the top or move down the chain of command, you never know when the manager that you forge a great working relationship or mentorship with gets promoted to senior level, higher level director. And if or when they do, it will shock you how opportunities can open up. So I would tell myself, like, find that VP, find that VP's assistant, have a just 15-minute chat of just asking them just questions that you are genuinely curious about, their path, if you want their path, their best advice. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell me why, because we're back in time here. Okay. So one of my good friends and mentors talks about having an open door policy when they were an executive. And I was shocked, floored, flabbergasted when they shared that in the years of being with this company, maybe like 5% of people took advantage of that. I feel like I was like halfway in the middle, but again, I would go back and tell myself, like, do that more, like literally sit down and have 15 minutes with every single person. Like, who cares if you annoy them? Like, it's 15 minutes of their time. It's fine, but you will get so much more out of that by like breaking out of that comfort zone. All right. Number 3, share your wins. Ladies, especially ladies, I am coming for you, especially not to call you out, but because this is statistically accurate and it pains me. We do not, compared to men, flex our wins. That big goal or project that we absolutely crushed, or that opportunity that we worked so hard for years to get in the right room and be in front of the right people for. It's like sometimes we do these big things and we stay quiet about it. On top of that, we also downplay our own accomplishments, and I know you know at least one person in your life that is an expert at moving in complete and utter silence. Okay, they will finish their master's degree, get promoted, give birth to twins, and plan your best friend's bachelorette party all within like a 2-week span. And no one will know unless they asked. And not even directly asked, but like pressed, you'll be like, oh, like I saw you didn't RSVP to my Galentine's Day dinner. Like, are you busy? And they're like, yeah, like, sorry, I can't make it. And you're like, well, why? It's a Tuesday. Why can't you come to my thing? And they'll be like, oh, that day I'm graduating law school and I'm walking across the stage at 4 p.m. and then at 6 p.m. I have to go to my sister's ranch to induce her horse into labor. And you had no idea that she even had a sister or that she was a veterinarian the whole time. And if you can't think of anyone in your life who is like this, I've got news for you. Surprise, it's probably you. Okay, according to Work It Daily, over 69% of women prefer to downplay their accomplishments rather than promote them. So why do we do this? Why do we not talk ourselves or our achievements up? Well, studies show that women are more likely to feel uncomfortable self-promoting, often worrying that they will appear arrogant or boastful. And unfortunately, this can lead to women being overlooked for promotions and other opportunities. Because if you move in complete silence, how is anyone going to know how awesome you are? A lot of women are brought up to be more reserved, just quieter, more demure, more mindful, more accommodating. Nope, that ends here. That ends now. So my younger self, I would put all my wins on my resume. I feel like I left out a few just to be like, oh, I don't want to seem too much, okay? No, go find less, basically. I would tell my younger self to flag every single win I had and strategically position it wherever I had a channel. Okay, I know younger me would be like, oh, it's much more fun to post pictures of my bottomless brunch with my friends on Instagram. And I'd be like, okay, babe, like do that. But also maybe every like 4th or 5th post of your food, talk about something you did, what it accomplished, and what others can learn from it. Add value to people's lives. Number 4, define your brand. Okay, so this is somewhat related to the above, but distinctive in the way that gives you control over your own narrative and how the world perceives you. Here's the thing. You can either define your personal brand or you can let everyone else do it for you. What sounds better? So when I've built brands in the past, it's always started with something called a brand identity. And this is before the logo, before the pretty colors. We must first figure out the personality and the effect that it wants to have on the world around them. This is the values, the purpose, and the promise all wrapped up into a vibe, essentially, that people can recognize, trust, and remember. What do we stand for? What's the tone of our voice? How do we show up? What is our why? And what makes us different from the brand that looks exactly like us? And here's the twist. As a human, you have a brand too, whether you're actively shaping it or not. So if I were screaming to my younger self, I would say, girl, I won't scream. I won't destroy your ears. I would say, girl, treat yourself like the main character of your own personal brand. Start with the 3 adjectives you want to be known for, find out what you want to stand for, and then put everything that you do through that filter. Because here's the truth. People are not hiring you for your skills. They are remembering you for your energy, your presence, your edge. And when you have a clear identity, when your brand, your human self brand is defined, you are so much more memorable. And I have other episodes about presence and showing up in body language and things like that if you want to check those out. But a really fun experiment is to ask your friends and family to describe you in 3 words, then ask yourself how you feel about those words. Maybe you like some, maybe like some surprise you, maybe you're like, whoa, like that's, you think, like sometimes our friends see ourselves the way we wish we saw ourselves. So it's just a really good reflection exercise. Now, ask yourself what you could do to shift that perception to be called out for the adjectives that you want to be known for. And guess what? If you get to a point where you're like, I don't think that I want to be known as the supercritical yet effective perfectionist director of social media. I want to be the free-spirited, rebellious pastry chef who is also an effective director of social media. Add layers, reinvent yourself as many times as you want. You are Madonna through the years, through the decades. You have that free will, use it. Number 4, the power of discernment. This one's for the version of me who said yes to everything out of fear of missing out, that FOMO. Fear of letting people down, or let's be honest, fear that nothing better would come along. That is a scarcity mindset, and that will not serve you. It will not burn you. We are not here for that. So let's define discernment. Discernment is simply the ability to judge well, not quickly, but wisely. It's knowing how to filter what's for you and what's just around you. It's having the presence of mind to pause before you act, commit, or speak. Impulse control is not a strength of mine. I have had to crash and burn and make a complete fool out of myself before consciously taking a yoga pause, if you will, and thinking before I speak. So some might attribute that to lack of maturity or experience, but from my perspective and having lived it, honey, that is an excuse. Think about it. The next time you're in any kind of meeting, pay close attention to the people, the leaders who you respect the most. Great leaders aren't the ones who talk the most in meetings. They're the ones who know when to speak, when to listen, and when to let something sit. And then maybe they come back 2 days later with a full plan of attack for how to get it done. One time I sat in a meeting where a junior teammate said something. It was really bold, but thoughtful. And the senior vice president, they stayed quiet for most of it, just like listening. Then they spoke once. They asked a single question, and it completely shifted the conversation in a really meaningful way. And that moment taught me that power doesn't need to perform. So here's what I would scream at younger me. You do not have to speak to be seen. Your presence isn't measured by the volume of your voice. Thank you, Rebecca Bloom. Or how many times you jump into the conversation. It's about how you do it, how you approach. Discernment makes you trustworthy. Whether you are managing people, collaborating cross-functionally, or leading from the middle, people notice when you are thoughtful. They notice when you pause before weighing in and when you respond rather than react. So now we have this very interesting dichotomy of finding the happy medium between moving in complete silence, which we don't want to do because we won't be noticed, and knowing when to speak and how. So like, how do we do that? In life, if your knee-jerk response to everything is, yes, I'd love to, pause. Discernment lives in the space between the ask and the answer. So if someone offers you an opportunity, a project, a date, a dinner party, and it's something that you're absolutely just dreading, don't go on autopilot and say yes, okay? Say, let me check my schedule and get back to you. Let me sit with it for a sec. Let me think it over. You are allowed to take a beat, and in that beat, you will know. So next step is, if this request makes you feel expansive, empowered, like charged up, then maybe you might be inclined to say yes. If you sit on it and for some reason it makes you feel smothered and overwhelmed and drained, no, that's a no for me. Thank you, but no. Now, at work, If your knee-jerk response to meetings is to unmute and contribute just to make sure people know you're engaged, pause. Before jumping in with a point, just to fill the air, ask yourself, am I adding clarity versus just noise? Is this actually moving the conversation forward, or are we sidestepping here? And do I need to say this now, or would it be more impactful in a follow-up? Give yourself time to just let it marinate. All right, and we're gonna wrap this up with a quick little bonus. It's a quick breakdown, like a mini brand workshop for your younger self, wherever you are at now. All right, so we're gonna go over your voice, values, vibe, and vision. Voice. How do you naturally speak or write? What tone feels most you? Warm and bold, calm and insightful, witty and unfiltered. Values. What matters to you in your work? What do you want to be associated with? Vibe. What's your style? What's your aesthetic? What is your presence in the room when you walk into it? What do you want that effect to be? Vision. Where are you going? And how can people support or join you on that path? Thanks for tuning in. That's a wrap on this episode of Jeans with a Blazer. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, a mindset shift, or just the push you needed, do me a favor. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Leave a review wherever you enjoy your podcasts. It helps more people find it, and it keeps these conversations going. And I love hearing from you. Follow at Jeans with a Blazer and tag me with your biggest takeaways, your latest wins, or just tell me what topics you want to hear about next. See you next time.